right, so without further ado, if you guys could just go down the line and talk about who you are and which film you're with and what your role is in the film. Are we still waiting for any folks to join us? All right.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Jireh and I was the director of Mia's Mission.
Hi, I'm Kiana and I'm the writer-director of Beachman #1.
Hi, my name is May-Lynn and I'm the writer and director of Hyphen.
Hi, my name is Sansa Onglatco. I'm the writer-director of Zenaida.
Hi, my name is Trent Nakamura. I'm the director of Queerfully Departed.
And my name is Mara De La Rosa, writer and actor of Queerfully Departed.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Yee and I wrote and starred in A Guide to Not Dying Completely Alone.
Hello, Timothy Guion Smith, and I'm the actor, filmmaker, writer, producer, director. Next
Yeah, just hang on real quick. If you guys could just go down the line again and just talk about the origin story of your film and just how it got started.
Sure. So back in 2015, I was working on a new media series, and as part of it, one of the facets we were exploring was dispelling and dismantling the Asian model minority myth. And with that, cut to 2017, I decided to come out about my HIV status over social media to family, friends, and coworkers. And I decided to incorporate that within our story, because when you think about HIV stigma, I guess, and the idea of the model minority myth, I guess that kind of like deems that it doesn't, within the AAPI diaspora, it doesn't affect the community, right? But that couldn't be further from the truth. Back in 2004, the Banyan Tree Project up in SF had created National AAPI HIV/AIDS Awareness Day as a way to combat the alarmingly high cases at the time. So I thought that could be like, you know, between those sort of, those folks who were doing the activism then, and then the ACT UP AAPI activists back in the day, I thought maybe with our story we can kind of continue their activism and just continue the conversation, because if the conversation's happening, and that means we're doing what we can to combat stigma and make sure that folks have access to, you know, the more they're conversing about it, they just have access to testing, preventative measures such as PrEP, and for those who test positive, that they have access to life-saving medication.
So, let's see. I was going through a hard time in my life, like many times in my life, and I was reading all these self-help books, and especially like at the beginning I'd be like really working hard at the self-help book and like following every rule. And I just found that it was getting me more and more depressed, and I just think it was like this expectation that I could never get of this like happiness in these books that are like, if you're not happy by the end of the day, it's your fault. Or if you're not a billionaire by the end of the week, you're doing it wrong. Follow this book. And I just, as the time went on, I was like, this is actually making me more depressed. And I think there is this thing of toxic positivity. And so I just started to get really angry at it and was like, what would it be to be like realistic about this moment? Because I think like, these books come from a viewpoint of we're all the same and we all come from the same background, and as much as I'd love to believe that, we live in America where there's racism and there's economic differences, and so I can't just, you know, go to the desert for a month and just like meditate because I have to pay my fucking bills. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, and it's not to say that we don't all have the same ability. I think though sometimes acknowledging the differences and acknowledging the problems are then something that you can work around and figure it out. So I was like, what would a self-help book from a cynical homosexual bitch be like? and I don't write books, so I was like, I'm gonna write, this is actually a TV pilot episodic, so I wrote the beginning of what could be a series, and I'm still deeply depressed. So don't follow me. I have no answers, but that's where it came from.
It's so weird how I can't quite even tell where that writing even comes from. I mean,
That happened to me. I didn't die, but I did think I was gonna die. So I was like, what if I wrote something where she gets a second chance, but she dies and she gets that chance anyway. And I reached out to Trent because we had worked together a bunch, and this was like our 7th film together. And so I pitched it to him as a play that we were both going to be in 2018. If you want to.
Yeah, Mara sent me the script 5 years ago in November of 2018. So this film has been 5 years in the making. And it went from being called Heaven to Life After, and now Queerfully Departed. It's gone on this wild journey of 30 script changes over and over, and one pandemic to, deal with. It's been a journey to get here, and I'm just so glad Mara asked me to direct her movie. Thank you.
And was there a super hot doctor in your near-death experience? Mara?
It actually was.
That was a total, yeah.
I was like, if I go, at least it was a hot girl down there.
So Zenaida is loosely based on a friend of mine who is Filipino Muslim and had to, after coming out to his very conservative Muslim family, he's from the south of the Philippines, which has a Muslim population. He had to flee the Philippines, and then he went to San Francisco and became a caregiver. But he was of Muslim royalty, so. For my thesis at AFI, I decided that I wanted to do an Filipino immigrant story, but I wanted it to be, I wanted to celebrate that experience, and I wanted to show a side of the Filipino diaspora, or Filipino OAX diaspora, where it showcases the fun side of the Filipino, the musicality, and I wanted to do a musical, and I wanted to show what if there was a Filipino diva that made it in the U.S., and so that's how Zenaida came to be.
Yeah, so for Hyphen, it was loosely based off of my experience coming out to my family. I thought it was a great idea to come out during the gender reveal of my now husband. And so, I don't know, it wasn't adding up. But yeah, so it makes for a great story though. So for my thesis idea, I was like, I think it would be a really unique setting. And I think it would be really awesome to look into what it's like to come out with a language barrier, because I've really never had a real conversation with my grandma, because I can't speak Vietnamese, but she only speaks kind of mostly Vietnamese. And so really just deep diving into that and seeing what is coming out when it's not coming from your own mouth.
So Bistro kind of originated from when I was a kid. My grandmother did have a little booth at that festival, and I just remember being a kid and my aunt coming around and holding this sign and trying to get more sales. And during the time, I had just moved from San Diego to San Francisco, and at the time I was just trying to explore who I am and try to forget all of my culture, everything that I grew up being. But then I realized when I met these new people, I wanted to share who I was, and that was my culture. So this film really explores intersectionality, being queer and Viet, and just knowing that you can have both at the end of the day.
I'm sorry, Kiana, we need to give you a shout out. So where are you from? And hashtag San Diego Pride.
Yeah, I was born and raised in San Diego. I grew up going to the theater a lot, so it meant a lot that it was here. I also transferred from community college here, so that's something that I like to shout out.
Awesome. Where is your lead actress? I thought she was coming on up here. Please stand up. Hashtag, come on down. You're not going to get away with that. So introduce her and hashtag Pack Arts Pride.
This is Nguyen. We were mutuals on Instagram, but I kind of knew I wanted them as my lead. They actually signed up to be a PA, and I was like, actually, how would you like to audition? And yeah, from then on, we just created like an amazing bond, and yeah, hashtag pack.
Arts pride.
Oh, hashtag pack arts pride.
I'm Weenie. I am the actor. You saw my giant face on the screen. That was kind of very close and intimate. Yeah, I just slid into Kiana's DMs and was like, please, may I audition for you if I cannot PA? Hee hee. And then here we are. So I'm glad to be a part of the process and this level of storytelling. I think it's very crucial.
Well, we are very proud. So how long were you an intern with Pack Arts?
Oh yes, some history, some lore. I was in Pack Arts as an intern a couple of years ago. I was part of the marketing and I made some silly little scripts and shot some silly little things. And if you were there, you were there. Yeah.
All right. We teach them good. Slip into those DMs. Make it happen for yourself. All right, go ahead, Jireh.
So it's funny because I think I'm maybe the only short doc in this lineup. Yeah. So I was assigned basically to do a video for the Asian American Journalists Association's Summer Video Fellowship. And yes, shout out to Andy, who's my mentor, who's here somewhere in the audience that I can't see them. Yay, they're in the back, they're waving. And I knew that selfishly, I really wanted to make it like very like gay and Asian because I think part of that, just knowing that like growing up, I felt so like alone in my experiences, and I felt like there wasn't necessarily this lineage of like queerness we could look up to. And so I started doing some very specific Google searches, and I was just looking up like old lesbian people. And I was just like, I was searching everywhere. I was like, where are the old gay lesbian Asians? They're somewhere here. Like, and I was like, it was really hard. Like even in a place like Los Angeles, where I'm from, where like there's like a lot of like support systems, a lot of groups, but there was, it was really hard. At first I found like this like Chinese American bodybuilder. I forgot her name, but she was like crazy back in the day. Like she was like there's like a Playboy magazine of her like doing that, and she was like the first Chinese American lesbian to ever write a memoir. But I couldn't get her. But through that I found this organization called Outwards, and they basically have like a whole catalog of interviews they do with older LGBTQ folks, basically to capture their life experiences and their history. And that's how I found Mia Yamamoto. And it was really wild because me and Mia are really, like, that was the first time I ever met her when we were interviewing her and recording with her, and she was so gracious and she was so willing to open up her life with us because she's done it so many times before. And also it was weird because after we had finished this like film project, I realized that like we were very, very close to each other, like 1 or 2 degrees of separation, because there just like aren't a lot of like queer Asians, even in a big city like Los Angeles. And so the big thing is that I feel like I was just like doing it for like shits and giggles, and then I shot and gaggled my way here. You know, I taught myself how to edit in Premiere Pro in 1 week to make that. So I'm very grateful to be here. I love everyone's films, and I feel like I was a student filmmaker at the time, and still very, very new to this. And so that was like the first film I ever made, and then I just submitted it to some film festivals because I thought Mia's story was very compelling, and now I'm here.
Part of the challenge with any documentary is trying to make sure your subject is comfortable and can open up and choosing the right settings, and I couldn't tell that was the first time you met her. That's awesome. Although I can't imagine her being uncomfortable in any sort of environment. She's so cool. how did you decide where to shoot her and how to approach that?
I knew that from the get-go that the premise was going to be like homemaking, because I feel like for so many queer people, especially Asian folks in the diaspora, like our relationship to home and belonging is so fraught, especially, like your family uproots themselves from like another country to be here in the US, and then also like there's the potential that after you come out to your family, you lose that connection to your ethnic community as well. And so I think that for me, I knew immediately like what the heart of the story was. Like Mia was born in a concentration camp, was born in an incarceration camp during World War II, and has experienced like so much of that American history of anti-Asian violence. And I knew that I wanted it to be rooted in Los Angeles because I am born and raised in LA, and Mia was born in Arizona but grew up for most of her life in East LA. And so I knew that like that was going to be a central part of it, just about her ties to her community and the physicality of Los Angeles that maybe isn't always seen. So we decided to film at like some different places, at her office, at MacArthur Park, and then also just at her home. And I think that sort of like was sort of the driving force behind it, just wanting to emphasize like we're here, we belong, and we're here to stay. And I think it meant a lot to just know that, like personally for me, I was very selfish. Like I want to know that there's like a trans Asian elder out there that I can look up to. And it just so happened that everyone else also cared about her story as well. So I'm very lucky that I got to do this project. I had no money, I had no budget, didn't even know what a budget would look like. I spent like $200 feeding everyone, and that was it, So very, very grateful, yeah.
All right, thank you, Jireh, and thank you for giving me my idea for my next documentary, just look up old Asian lesbian. I'm good to go. All right, just run down the line. What struck me most about a lot of your films was the casting and the chemistry between a granddaughter, and a grandmother, a mother, and a son. Just really good chemistry, and just talk about your casting and how you ended up with your characters, and how did you come up with that? I mean, how did the chemistry happen? Was it sort of just through the casting process, or go ahead?
We know how I casted Weenie, but the rest of the crew, I definitely was like, it was very important to me to find like Asian representation and just trying to bring Viet actors and actresses to life. And I think it was just so wild to me because I've never really like searched for that before. So when I casted everyone, I think when I auditioned with everyone, just like their excitement and just like their joy to be in a space where they can create art, because they haven't been able to before. Cynthia, who played the grandmother, hearing her and just her saying that her mom would be proud, and just seeing her still go at what she's doing, and yeah, it was just an amazing experience. And then seeing them all on set was just a joy for me.
Did she and your grandmother read together, because you were pretty powerful together? They were pretty powerful.
Yeah, we did a read through, and I think it was really well. We meshed well as human beings, and then on set it was just so joyous. Yeah.
Yeah, similarly to your story, it was really important we had a really big cast in Hyphen, and since it is a Vietnamese American story, it was really important that our cast was all Vietnamese. And so when we were casting for it, it was definitely really hard to find a Vietnamese grandma who would want to act, but a lot of our actors are non-actors. And so I knew that would be a challenge because it's like, oh, they're not familiar with the process and being in front of a camera. And so it was really important for me during the rehearsal process after casting all of them to really just before we even pick up the script and start reading, let's start building who your person is outside the story, because the story is very much just one anomaly in their life. It's like where the drama happens. Who are they regularly? So building out who they were outside of the script really helped, specifically the non-actors, to just like be like, they would get to the point while we were rehearsing, and they'd be like, what if my characters is this? Because I feel like this is more on brand for them. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. So when your actors know your characters better than your like the writer, I feel like that's just like how I built the chemistry between them. And they were also very excited to be a part of the Vietnamese story, just because there isn't really a lot out there. So, yeah, thank you.
So, you know, you write, you come up with fun characters, and then casting. And then I really wanted it to be authentically cast, and it was not easy to cast my film. So I reached out to the Filipino-American community to find my diva, which is not easy to find. But I was so lucky to find Fed de los Reyes, who is actually a singer in real life. And I also had a casting director who helped me come up with this beautiful, diverse cast during COVID. So a lot of the cast didn't know each other except for maybe 2 actors who worked together before. We had a few Zooms. It was very hard to get rehearsal. But a lot of the chemistry was created on set and a few rehearsals. But yeah, and then the lead was hard because I wanted someone who spoke Tagalog, didn't have an very thick American accent, could really speak Tagalog, could do drag, is in his 40s. It was written like 40s. And then, I just made it so hard for myself. And then could dance, because he choreographed his own movements. And then on top of that, they had to learn the song. So the ones who could sing had to be able to sing. Yeah, it was not easy. And then 2 weeks before we were about to film the drag mother, the original one, I couldn't cast anymore, something happened. So we found the drag mother a few days, almost less than a week before the shoot. So he came to set and we just went with it.
That's incredible because he was one of the stars of your film, I thought. It was great. Amazing.
For our casting process, we were virtual. It was during the pandemic, so we didn't have in-person auditions. What stood out to me about our doctor, Reshma, she, in her reel, she's actually the opening girl in La La Land. So she has this musicality to her that I already noticed in her audition. And what I loved about her audition and just her throughout the process was, I thought when it comes to comedy, there's a lot of timing and beats and hitting those moments. And because she had that musicality side to her, she was a perfect fit. And when she auditioned alongside Mara, even more so, that came to life. And the other thing I just want to say about the casting process was our original Amelia Earhart caught COVID 2 days before our shoot, along with our production designer. So we lost both. And our new Amelia Earhart had luckily played Amelia Earhart in a play like 3 months earlier. So we were just so lucky that she knew Amelia Earhart so well. And I don't know if you want to share more, Mara, but that was part of the wild part of our process.
Yeah, it was so easy. I remember what sold the doctor to me was I wanted to vomit when I saw her. I was so nervous. Not like gross, like wow, beautiful. Like can act and everything. But yeah, that's what's wrong.
Oh, I don't know. Chemistry. I hope it worked because I had no auditions. I had no money. We had no time. So I was literally just going through the pool of people that I knew. Obviously, the white people were very easy to cast. So many of them in Hollywood. But they were actually, because this is actually a half-hour pilot and I could only afford 12 minutes of it. So the white people, is that rude? So the white people, they were supposed to play other parts because, you know, it's a more expansive story. And then I was like, sorry, we have to cut all that because we have no money. Can you play these parts? And they graciously agreed. And then Paul, the dad, is somebody that I just knew from, I used to be in the musical theater world. And so I was like, hey, you. And he said yes, and that was easy. We didn't rehearse at all. And then Brittany I knew from the TV writing world. I'm a TV writer too, and Brittany, if you don't know, is Brittany Nichols, writes for Abbott Elementary and Black Lady Sketch Show, and she just doesn't get a lot of time in front of the camera, so she is looking for projects. I'm like pitching her to you. Anybody? Actually, don't reach out. I don't know that for sure. But I think it worked. Like whether or not the chemistry worked, I think like it is the meeting of two people. So we weren't really supposed to be besties. So hopefully it worked. I don't know.
It worked. Yeah, you guys are incredible together. It worked.
So with my actor, I guess quick funny story. I promise to be succinct. But actually, Joan is here. Happy to have her here. So once upon a time, I was an undergrad at NYU Tisch where I was studying musical theater. And while I was studying musical theater, one of the things you do obviously in undergrad, circa late 2000s, is just watch YouTube and all, you know, sorts of singers sing all sorts of things. And in undergrad, when I realized I wanted to hone my filmmaking and I started writing a lot, I was writing like, ooh, who can play my Filipino mother one day when I start casting down the pipe, like this was like 2010. And I saw Joan Amladelia, who was the first Filipina and I think Asian actor to play Fantine in Les Mis, and I saw her I Dreamed a Dream on YouTube. And so when I was writing this role, it was basically her and all her really dear Filipina actor girlfriends who I thought of like, oh, one day somebody will play my mom like that. And then, you know, cut to June 2021, and I released the breakdowns in Los Angeles, and her manager, Anthony, had submitted her, and I was like, oh, shit. Wow. So then, you know, obviously, offer went right out, and I guess one thing she shared with me during prep for the film, because obviously with a show like this, there's no time to rehearse really. So one of the things she shared, I guess in it very easily translated on screen, was that the reason why the story felt so impactful to her was when she was with Les Mis up in SF at the Current Theater, I guess it was maybe the early 2000s, she had volunteered her time at one of the HIV/AIDS houses where I believe she met some either children who lost their parents to AIDS or children who were also born with it as well. So it was a story that was near and dear to her heart. So in many ways, you know, a lot of filmmaking, as we all understand, is to kind of let go and see what happens, and that's kind of what happened with ours. And luckily, there's just the perfect amount of kismet that made everything, you know, be what it was.
All right, I think we have maybe a couple questions from the audience. So raise your hand if you have a question. Go ahead.
Was the grandmother in hyphen non-English speaking?
She spoke a good amount because I don't. Yeah, her name's Alice. She's wonderful. She speaks like really good English, so it's really great because I was like basically learning Vietnamese while directing them in Vietnamese. I had to learn the words. But no, she speaks English. So luckily we were able to communicate about like, this is what this line's supposed to mean. And she was like, great, I got it. So yeah, she's actually the like aunt of my producer. So that's how we found her.
Well, she was a really good actress because I really didn't think she knew any English. So, yes. Good job. Any other questions? Go ahead.
All the songs are original. So all the Tagalog songs are made by my friend Zosimo Kipila Jr. And he was very specific when we collaborated like Zenaida's fake filmography. And then the composer who did the score also wrote the drag queen song. Yeah, so it's all original. It was pretty fun.
It's beautiful. And one last question. Go ahead.
Question for the director of where did you get that house?
It's the house in Neon Demon. It's called, for all the filmmakers in LA, it's called it's in Silver Lake, it's called the Paramore Mansion, and it was available, and it was a discounted price because it was the pandemic.
What was that low price? I'm just kidding.
Student price, but we could only use a section of the house.
Okay.
I shot the shit out of that section.
You made it look so big, the house.
At some point, Katy Perry wanted to buy that house.
Oh,
Very strange.
all right, well, thank you guys. Let's give it up one more time for our filmmaker.